There is a push to revitalize local news and community engagement by creating a virtual overlay for a physical city. It's called CityVerse. Find out how this idea is designed to create social bonds. Bloom Health Club starts now.
From the Stream Center, welcome to Bloom Health Club, sponsored by Monticciolo Family and Sedation Dentistry.
Many believe a rise in social media has led to the demise of our overall happiness. That's why our Bloom Health Club guest is trying to find a way to build community involvement through the new platform, CityVerse. We'd like to welcome our newest Bloom Health Club guest, Joe Hamilton. Welcome.
Thanks, Gayle. It's awesome to be here.
So I love this idea, but before we dive into it, I want you to meet our director, Terrence Middlebrooks. He's punching the show today, and he'll be jumping in with questions. But this is going to be so much fun, Terrence, because you and I go back in the media world. It's nice to have it locally centric again.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what Joe has to say about just how the media world has evolved to today's times, you know?
All right. So, Joe, we are getting a lot of our information by scrolling. And some of that is very accurate, but some of it's very divisive. A lot of it is very slanted. So what are you trying to do to bring back local messaging and bond our communities?
Well, first, I think that it's natural for us to feel happier and want to connect with our local communities. I think that's the mentally happiest place to be. The problem is that these national platforms, I wouldn't say the problem, what the social media has introduced is a lot of upgrades to how we communicate with each other. Now, some of those upgrades have kind of gone awry, but in theory, whereas news used to be sort of just a one-way street and you sort of received it and it kind of came from one source, now you can inject yourself into the conversation. You can do your own research, which the internet has, an endless supply of things to learn. And you can have this enhanced content experience where you're taking those ideas that were just stories and you're interacting with your friends. You're adding your own threads, and it's just a better way to exist with content. The problem is all those platforms that have been successful are more nationally centered.
So you've raised about 70% of your capital to launch CityVerse. Once this is up and running, which I'm sure will get up and running very soon because it's a brilliant idea, but you're kind of putting like a digital overlay of an entire city. So like, let's take St. Petersburg, for example, like one of the most beautiful cities in the North Atlantic along the water side. It's gorgeous. It's so hip, trendy, ahead of its time. How will you bring that together on your digital platform?
Well, the idea is that if we can bring some of those things that make dealing with content fun and some of the utility and all those things that make the content experience better, people will gravitate to it. The good news is a lot of that stuff's already happening in our city, but there's because we're so sort of scattered in our attention to these national platforms, we're not connected as efficiently as we could. And so the idea is by having a platform that's just tied to a city and all the things on it are in that city, it creates an environment where local creators can put content up, the news and things. I've been running the St. Pete Catalyst for 8 years now, and so I've kind of been at the forefront of understanding local news. And me running the paper, I get a lot of benefit. I'm connected to a lot of things, but I realize that it's not about me, it's about the system I've created. And I think that we can spread that system so that everybody can take advantage of it. Because ultimately what I'm benefiting from is knowing what's going on and using tools to sort of accentuate what's going on. So if we can provide those tools to the community, they can bring what they're already doing, connect to more people who are doing it, and even do it a little better with some of the modern technologies that are out there. And I think naturally, sort of nature will take its course and good things will rise from that.
So how does it work? Are we going to log on from our desktop? Will we see it on our phone? Like, how do you interact with this new CityVerse concept?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's not reinventing anything new. It's really just taking what's out there and applying it locally. So all the content on CityVerse will be free to come and read. You log on, it'll be similar to a social media platform. So you'll have your own profile. We call it a home space. We've branded everything for the CityVerse. And so you'll have your home space. But then where it gets a little bit different from the standard platform is we're creating our own content to sort of keep the flywheel turning. So that's some of our own news and brands. Then we'll create the tools for anybody else to create content as well. And then as this attention builds, we'll start to bring in utility. The first layer kind of utility is some of the stuff we already know from the newspaper, bringing back classifieds, games and things like that. Wordle is kind of what's keeping the New York Times going. But then additionally, we can start to add things like dating or shopping, and then where it really gets fun is utility. So I mentioned just helping people who are already doing things do things better. We'll give every artist in town a free online gallery, and in that gallery they can customize it for themselves. They can sell prints, they can sell NFTs, they can take commissions, they can have a live stream to their studio, and then each artist can put one piece in a central art marketplace, and you have a one-stop shop for all the local art. And that new art and that art news and all the data that throws off, we'll be able to create content around, and that rides along with the local news. So now people are logging on, we know, to read the general local news, but now they get all this additional stuff with it, and some of those things will catch their attention and they'll get involved, and slowly but surely, whatever the Florida version of a snowball is starts to form, and people get back in together.
Now, I can see how everyone's going to put content in there, but when it comes to real journalism, how will you control the narrative of what's being put out there? Because you and I talked about this off camera a good bit, and I've been in the industry for 37 years. Since 1988 is when I officially started at the ABC affiliate in Montgomery, Alabama. Then I came closer to home to Sarasota, and then I've been here for nearly 33 years. Having said that, as I walk down memory lane, I've seen the way news is delivered is very different than the way it started out when I was first in the industry.
Yeah, and that's a great question. So first and foremost, transparency is a key issue. So in CityVerse, as a piece of content comes into your feed, it'll be color-coded by its source. So if it's done by a professional journalist, then it will have a certain background color, and just at a glance, you'll know this is Catalyst journalism, or this is Tampa Bay Times journalism, and so on and so forth. If it's done by a creator that's a known local creator who's put enough content out and has received sort of enough of a reputation, they will get their own trusted creator background. And then the general public will have a different background as well. And additionally, a lot of our content will be created by artificial intelligence because there's so much data floating around that will be labeled as artificial intelligence as well. So sort of kind of 4 to 5 sources, all will be color coded so you know exactly where they come from.
Now, will you be reading this content, or will there be video sources as well?
It's mixed. So it's like a social media platform. We're open to anything, and in fact, because we're not reinventing how content is absorbed, we're just applying it locally. We actually have mimicked the 4 major content types. So we have Zaps, which already exist on the Catalyst, which are sort of 2 to 3 line stories. We have Frames, which is our photos, so sort of like Instagram, and we have Epics, which are like Facebook posts, and we have Visuals, which are short videos. And so we'll take all that kind of content just like other platforms, but applied locally.
All right, Terrence, I saw you slide in, my friend.
My signature move is I'll sneak in on this shot. So, Joe, let me ask you this: you compete. I'm not going to say the word compete, but however, you do have social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok. Also, you have platforms like Reddit. How are you going to pull that audience there and draw them into CityVerse? So, basically, my question is, who is your exact target audience?
Well, once we're up and running, so the first thing we'll do to turn the flywheel is our own news and content. And, because we're pretty connected in St. Pete, we already have some folks that are jump on and creating content. In fact, we just introduced one of our first creators a couple of days ago in the Catalyst. But the idea is that this should be the path of least resistance for local creators. So, I use the example sometimes, if you want to be a famous dessert chef, you make great videos, you put them on YouTube, and you get worldwide acclaim. That's not really what CityVerse is for. But if you're St. Pete foodies, or you want to, you really care about Lake McGorry environmental situation or whatever, and you want to create content around that and build a following around that, it's actually quite hard to do that on the national platforms, because what percentage of people on YouTube care about St. Pete restaurant reviews, right? Whereas in CityVerse, everybody does. And so the idea is that we'll have those same incentive mechanisms, if not better ones than the other platforms. We'll have more potent local distribution, and we'll have what I call ride along, which is a really key ingredient. So Reddit is a beautiful platform. It's really probably the place I would go to get the deepest information, but it's a specific demographic that uses Reddit, right? And the average citizen in St. Pete probably isn't on Reddit. The ones that are really on there. But the idea is that those kind of topics that are on Reddit, if they were on CityVerse, would ride along in the daily edition with, that we're already getting 40, 50% open rates with, and along with all this other local content, and it gets a bigger distribution. So, with the ability to incentivize both financially and socially, as well as a bigger, more potent distribution, that's how I think in aggregate we can compete against the other platforms.
That's interesting. And, I think a lot of people don't realize that our local economy and what's happening with the local pulse is what drives communities. There's so many big box stores and Amazon and this and that. Yep. But at the heart of it, people do not realize what happens on a local level is directly linked to the health of your city's economy.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because as people go on Instagram, what are the ads they're seeing on Instagram? A lot of times they're national ads, and they're stealing those dollars away. Not to mention the local newspaper. At the heart of all of this is a suffering local news business, and they're still creating value, but that value is going on, and the Facebooks of the world are basically monetizing the value. And with a platform that's local, and the local newspapers will be part owners and receive revenue share from the platform. So the idea is they're creating the value. Instead of it going to some big behemoth company, it could come right back to them to fund some of that investigative journalism that we've lost.
So you're doing this in St. Petersburg. Will there be then a CityVerse Tampa, a CityVerse, Clearwater? Will there be, and then how will you tie that to newspapers? Because, I will say back in early 2000, when we actually moved into this building in 2000, we were the first television station in the nation to have a .com, a newspaper, and a television station all under one umbrella.
And now a streaming center.
Yeah, and now a streaming center.
Nice.
But gone are the days of major newspapers where, more of the boutique newspapers like the Longboat Key Observer and that's what's really thriving. But how do you tie it to a newspaper?
Yeah, well, you don't necessarily have to. So what we're looking at is we can either bring a catalyst to a town. So, our target right now is cities with 100 to 200,000 people in their civic core. If they have their news desert, we'll just bring a catalyst and install it. If they have a paper, that's actually part of our value prop, is that we're building this world-class news platform. And a lot of the smaller papers we've talked to have said, man, we're spending $200,000-$300,000 a year on maintaining this news platform, and nobody even likes it, right? And so we can give you that news platform for free. You can just use our platform. It has built-in ad sales, and then it ties into the CityVerse platform. Then you can revenue share with that. So a big part of our sort of scaling strategy is to bring that news platform as a benefit. If they're a really good established paper and don't need that, then we can just plug their content right into CityVerse, and they become a partner and revenue share with us. So we can kind of fit any model.
I have two follow-up questions.
Sure.
When you say I'm bringing in a catalyst, what does that mean?
So Catalyst is our news platform.
Okay, so it's your,
so we're actually bringing our own newspaper.
It would be the Tampa Catalyst.
Yeah, Tampa Catalyst, Peoria, Illinois Catalyst. Yeah.
And how many people are under the St. Pete Catalyst right now?
Yeah, so the way we work is we partner. So we're actually becoming, oddly, like a small Associated Press, because in St. Pete, the Tampa Bay Times publishes our content, as does WUSF, as does Florida Politics, Art Access. And so our core staff is just 3 people. And we have specific areas that we cover. And the Catalyst is very nerdy, right? So we cover the city councils and the county commission and business and things like that. We aren't weather, we aren't sports, we aren't, and this is where CityVerse comes in. So this is where you can augment that coverage. And to answer your earlier question about how do you bring journalism in, maybe modern journalism is in the aggregate, right? Because the old model is you hire someone to review restaurants and you try to sell ads against their salary. But the new model is anybody can kind of compete to be that person, use our incentive mechanisms, and we make money together through them adding content to the platform. And if they're not very good or somebody comes along better, it's sort of democracy, we'll call it, or survival of the fittest, and they can rise up and reclaim that. And so you actually have the things that I would say require real journalism, which is really understanding policy, maybe doing some of those investigative pieces, are left to trained journalists, and then some of the other content can be supplemented by real experts in their fields.
Interesting.
Yeah. sorry, Gail. But Joe, how do you categorize or prioritize those people who are producing that content? You said that is it based on likes? It's almost similar to a SEO. How do I get my name or my content to the top of your list?
Yeah. So it's basically just who is most read and who is most consistently read and most followed. And keep in mind, local is a very different animal. So one of the keys, one of the things we've looked at is how trolls and bots and things like that have infiltrated and reduced the experience. So you cannot put a single word on CityVerse. You can view all the content you want because eyeballs are valuable, but you can't make a comment or have a home space unless you're a verified local citizen, and we have no anonymity on CityVerse. So everybody's going to know who you are. Now you can have a screen name because it's fun and an avatar name or whatever, but if we hold your mouse over it, it puts up your real name and links to your real profile. And so with that, you actually have a reputation that you have to build over time, and it brings back what local is. I know my neighbor,
I like that.
right? And now I know that I can trust this person to read to talk about this restaurant or talk about this environmental issue or tell me I'm going to like this movie because I've seen them over and over again and I built that relationship, and then those are the people that will thrive, which at its core is a great concept, right? It's just, it's too easily gamed on the national platforms is the problem.
Interesting. All right. So let's go back to the food review guy or gal. They're going out, they're doing restaurant reviews, and you say it's kind of a win-win. It's profitable for you and it's profitable for them. How is it profitable? Like, how does because everyone's like, how do you monetize? I don't want to be creating content for nothing.
Yeah. So I will say first, it's important to understand the CityVerse business model. So we will have ads, but ads are not working for the news business. And the other thing that's not working for the news business is gated content, right? Because number one, the minute you put a content gate and you have to subscribe to get to that content, your numbers go down by 90%, which makes your ads worth 90% less, right?
Right.
And so our golden rule is all content is free to absorb. And we don't gate any of it. What we have is we've modeled our business model after Amazon Prime, where we're going to have all this value on the platform, and you pay $7 a month to have access to that value. So that will include having a home space. That will include, if you think about basic things like I'm an artist, I can have a gallery. If I want to post in the classifieds, if I'm a real estate agent, I want to post my property in our real estate tool. We have so many different tools that will be on there, access to discounts and, all the things that kind of exist on the internet. When you think of Prime is video streaming, free shipping, discounts at Whole Foods. It's a weird bunch of value, and you pay a monthly, a yearly fee to be part of it, and it just kind of works. I mean, I'm a Prime member, and I
love it. Yeah. I love it. So, okay, so let me try to keep breaking this down. I'm sorry.
Yeah, to answer your question though. So the idea is then that there are tools, so you can tip the creator, you can subscribe to them. And things like that, Substack, Patreon, you can become that type of a supporter. We will revenue share back some of those citizenship subscription fees. We will revenue share back some of the advertising as well. And then there are a lot of other little ways that we have some revenue built into the platform through transactions. So if you think about, we're providing this free gallery to artists. We'll provide free shops to anybody in town that wants for the $7 a month fee. And then we can actually be the transaction layer there as well. So maybe 1% fee if they sell a piece of art or something like that. So that's kind of what Shopify does, right? We call it the Shopify layer. They provide this e-commerce software and this transacting software, and they take a small percentage for that, and they built their business around that. So we can actually mimic that.
Okay. So you can log on for free and look at everything, or you can pay $7 for your Prime membership that might get you discounts, access to buy. That's where you get to become interactive.
Yeah.
When you're so let's just say that I'm running around talking about all the health and wellness happening in the Tampa Bay area. How do you figure out whether my reports are directly benefiting said business?
Well, so what you would probably do is establish yourself as this authority, right? And so as you put content out, you could potentially, if you have products that you wanted or consulting you wanted to sell, you could do that as well. If you wanted to represent businesses and have sort of paid interactions with them, you could do that. You would also, as your content got traction, you would receive some of that revenue share. And so the idea is that you would build that around yourself and transact and then benefit the businesses that you work with locally.
How are you going to get your members to sign up? Like, how will you put CityVerse out there and promote what you're doing? Well,
I mean, we already have a lot of social media brands, and the Catalyst has been working very, very well for 8 years now. So we kind of already have an audience. really, to me, it's just overwhelming them with value. We just have to keep adding benefits till it's like, this is a no-brainer. One little piece of CityVerse will be worth it to me. For example, and this is, I don't know how we're doing on time, but one of my favorite parts of CityVerse is what I call the affinity bar. And so if you think about, in the Tampa Bay Rays, our investors in CityVerse, if you think about being a Rays fan, there's really no way to get a community and gather and do stuff with the community around Rays fans. The best thing you could actually do is maybe be in a Facebook chat group, right? Which is kind of limited to just people talking about the Rays. So, and there's no way that you can advertise that to people that aren't in that chat group. So what we would have is the Rays fan bar, which is a small bar that just plugs into your home space, and it's not overwhelming. It just shows that you're a Rays fan, but it has tons of utility built into it. So you would upload your photo, and it would put you in a Rays jersey, and now you can gamify being a fan. So if you're a season ticket holder, you might get a special ring around your jersey. If you eat 10 hot dogs, you might get the hot dog badge, right? Or if you've got things to trade, people who see you could click on it and trade with you, and then it gets you access. So this is actually the Rays' idea: is if you have your avatar in your fan bar, after the game, they'll bring out a player to this sort of virtual PR press conference, and the players would kind of be on stage with the host. And again, this is all virtual, so it's direct fan engagement with no middlemen, which the Rays love. Anybody with an avatar that has a fan bar gets to be in that front row, and anybody else, true to our edict that everything's free to absorb, can just sit in the normal audience and hear the conversation. But if you have the fan bar, you can go up on stage and talk with one of the players and ask them a question. And of course, now everybody who sees everybody else's avatar is like, oh, what level are they at? What kind of fan are they? Do they have anything to trade? And now they're interacting with each other, and communities being built in real time. And so anybody can take that fan bar experience, whether it be a church or bird watching club, and gamify and connect the community around these little bars. So if I'm the bird watching club, I can upload a bunch of birds you have to catch or see, and take a picture, and then I get those badges, and all of a sudden I'm now, it starts to build the utility around being in the bird watching club.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to slide in and ask a quick question, especially if you talk about local newspaper. We only have a few minutes here, Joe, left. But when you talk about local newspaper, you can't speak on that without speaking on sports and weather. You mentioned sports. There, or at least a tie to sports, the Rays, such as the Bucks, or so on and so forth. What about weather? Is there anything kind of similar to what you just said about the Rays and the avatars that's tied into weather? Because to me, that's what's going to pretty much draw me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like weather watchers.
Yeah, weather watchers. And
yeah, I guess it comes down to how much. So obviously we'd have access to all the same data that a lot of the weather reports get, and then we can add that to the platform. And that's where we might do partnerships with weather specific entities and things like that. Or we may have some pretty fun, amateur meteorologists as well. But it's a lot of that stuff can be solved with technology now.
Yeah, and there are so many meteorologists that are out there. They're not in the industry anymore, but they're still scientists, and they're still out there. They can't get it out of their blood, which I think this is kind of going to be a great platform for journalists and different people in the industry that may not be in it anymore, but want to put their toe back in the water.
Yeah, and it's meant to be a kind environment, right? So it's because we have local, non-anonymous, they can feel happy going there. They're not going to get lit up.
I love this. All right, Joe Hamilton, thank you so much for joining us and telling us all about CityVerse. And of course, I want to give a special shout out to Monticciolo Family and Sedation Dentistry. Without their support here of Bloom Health Club, we would not be able to bring you this incredible content. Don't forget, you can watch our streaming show, Bloom Health Club, on Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, Samsung TV, WFLA.com, and YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. I will see you on the next Bloom Health Club.